Today on Investigate TV Plus, a teen's college choice is one of the most important of their young life, but now life is becoming a big factor in that decision. I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm Tisha Powell. How a landmark Supreme Court ruling is impacting where some students apply.
There are students that are just not considering certain states. That's just a reality.
And a college counselor shares advice for prospective students and their parents.
I would say this generation is very, they know what they want.
Plus, an ambulance ride can be life-saving, but it can also come at a significant cost.
They should know what to expect, and there needs to be accountability.
We investigate what's being done to protect patients from a big bill.
Looks like the business has been good too, though, huh?
With a passion for his craft and no timeline for retirement, meet the barber who opened up a new shop in his 90s.
I didn't tell my family or nothing because I knew they wouldn't agree.
In-depth stories that inform and inspire. You're watching Investigate TV Plus. Choosing a college is a big and often stressful decision for both young adults and their parents. In the last decade, overall college enrollment has dropped. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, in 2010, 68% of high school graduates enrolled in college right away, compared to 62% in 2021. College enrollment rates also differ by sex. In 2021, 70% of female students enrolled right away, compared to 55% of male students. And some college-bound students we spoke with say they are rethinking where they'll apply because of a 2022 landmark decision by the U.S. Supreme Court. Reporter Heather Graff has new insight on the potential impact to families, schools, and even healthcare options on campus.
So size, class size, and college size.
The college conversation.
Study abroad.
Yes.
Between students and admissions consultant Jen Jesse often starts with a list.
So location size is optional.
Things they're looking for in a school, from selling points to deal breakers.
You start from the very top, which is budget. Every student either is going to have an unlimited budget or they're going to have a very strict budget.
Jen's test prep and college counseling business is based in Virginia, but she works with kids all over the country.
They light up when they find their college. That's, for me, my favorite part.
And besides cost, some of the most common considerations she hears are things like campus and class size, majors and minors, rural or urban, public or private, plus distance from home, and even the weather.
I think for every student, the factors are different because it's based on the student's life.
Yet over the last year or so, Jen says a new factor has emerged for some students and parents.
There are students that are just not considering certain states. That's just a reality.
Because of abortion laws.
Because of abortion laws, yeah.
Strong opinions stemming from the U.S. Supreme Court's June 2022 ruling that overturned Roe v. Wade, thus eliminating federal abortion rights and leaving the decision up to individual states.
I would say this generation is very, they know what they want. So they'll say, I'm not going to a college where I don't have any reproductive rights. That's not happening.
A recent poll by Gallup and Lumina Foundation surveyed about 6,000 currently enrolled college students and found 72% said reproductive health laws in the state where their school is located are at least somewhat important to their decision to stay enrolled, 20% calling it extremely important. And the results were comparable when researchers asked another 6,000 college-age adults who were not currently enrolled.
I would definitely say it was extremely important to me.
Madison Lilly is a freshman at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., and says her pro-choice views played a big part in her college decision.
My mother went to WashU in St. Louis, so I originally had intended on applying there. But especially when Missouri became one of the first states to really start pursuing abortion bans and restrictions, it made me reconsider it a lot, and ultimately I didn't end up applying there at all.
We also spoke to students on the other side of the abortion debate.
As someone who is pro-life, I don't want it to be a political thing. I want it to be a way of life.
Larissa York is a senior at the Catholic University of America who acknowledges many in her generation are pro-abortion rights, but says they don't speak for everyone.
I do know from my own experience that the pro-life movement is alive and well, especially among young people. Like if you go to the March for Life, there's a ton of young people.
Meanwhile, the American College Health Association says the reversal of Roe v. Wade is impacting schools as well and creating confusion for staff in on-campus health centers.
You're under the Hippocratic Oath to provide the best care possible, and you want to give a student in crisis all the options that you can that are evidence and fact-based. But at the same time, in the back of your mind is am I going to be charged criminally or civilly for aiding and abetting or something?
What about the issue of funding public colleges and universities that, for instance, receive state funding? Is there a concern that if they push back on this, that they could lose funding potentially?
Absolutely right, because state legislatures also control the purse strings of the academic institutions in a lot of cases.
In response, ACHA CEO James Wilkinson says his organization has developed new guidelines and recommendations intended to help colleges navigate the challenges of providing reproductive health care in a, quote, changing landscape.
I can assure you that our members are going to abide by the laws that govern them in their state and localities. So there's just adding as much clarity as we can to the process for both students and providers.
Rank them?
Yeah.
This was number one.
And while there is no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to choosing a college,
Every single student is going to have their own individual search.
Jen's advice to students now more than ever is this.
Just know that you're not locked in and you can always change your mind and find another college. If things aren't working out, there's other colleges out there.
No matter what you or your prospective student are looking for in a college, the admissions consultant we spoke with says you should spend time talking to students on campus before you make any final decisions.
Another piece of advice for parents is to know the laws in the state where your child's college is located. Still to come, billions of dollars lost to scammers because of online shopping. We'll show you how to be your own investigator to tell if an ad is real or fake.
And next, a mother explains the sticker shock she felt after her daughter took an ambulance.
We were just assuming it was in network. There was no time.
How costly rides impact patients nationwide and what's being done to change the laws.
We went from an in-network hospital to an in-network hospital with an ambulance company that was provided by the hospital, and that ended up being out of network, and that's where the problems came.
Ambulance bills aren't being controlled like other medical costs. The reason? A gap in the law.
Consumer investigator Carice Jackman, in partnership with KFF Health News, has one woman's story of a big bill and a push to hold down ambulance prices.
It's not something you want to see or hear. An ambulance coming to you when your life is at risk. But for many ground ambulance patients, the financial headache begins once they're back at home, opening their bill for the first time. When Yvette Hammond's 9-year-old daughter had trouble breathing, she took her to a nearby ER.
We got there, realized that she really was struggling, and they needed to transfer her to the Children's Hospital in Atlanta. What we didn't realize, though, is that that was out of network.
When she got her bill 4 months later, Hammond says she was in shock to see her daughter's 40-minute ambulance ride from one hospital to the next totaled nearly $1,000 out of pocket.
And it wasn't written anywhere. You guys had no idea until it was after the fact.
Right, yeah. We were just assuming it was in network. There was no time.
When Hammonds got in touch with her insurance company, they explained that her total amount was $972. Her insurance approved $106, dropping what she owed to $865. But for Hammond's family of 6, it's an expensive bill.
People should know what they're going to be charged. They should know what to expect, and there needs to be accountability for how much these ambulance companies charge.
They even told her in a statement, ambulance providers are not offered an in-network contract with a medical plan. They went on to say that the ambulance company may still bill her for more because they're not in network with her plan.
You know, in some ways she's lucky because ambulance providers are generally out of network, and at least her plan has agreed to pay some of the bill. We get a lot of bills where the insurer just says, It's out of network, so you're on your own.
Dr. Elizabeth Rosenthal, senior contributing editor of KFF Health News, says the current way patients are billed for ground ambulances often puts an enormous strain on patients.
Are you finding that Americans are having a hard time paying, one, understanding ground ambulances and how they operate, but also paying the cost?
Sure. I mean, these are not insignificant rides. They often run in the close to $1,000, as this one did, sometimes $2,000, $3,000. And, you know, that's a lot of money.
Rosenthal also said on top of getting the bill, patients have a hard time understanding what exactly they're paying for.
Not only did they charge for the ride, they're charging by the mile. They're charging if they put oxygen probes up your nose. They charge if they do an EKG. Like, every little bit of service is charged for. I just think if we think of it as a municipal service, we should pay for it with taxpayer dollars, not by grabbing money from poor patients who have no choice.
The choices are even slimmer considering it's an emergency, and a law established to protect consumers doesn't even apply to an ambulance ride. In 2022, the No Surprises Act went into effect, giving consumers billing protections when getting emergency care, capping unexpected bills from out-of-network providers at in-network rates. The law covers air ambulance services, like helicopter rides to the hospital, but not ground ambulances.
So the big gap with the No Surprises Act was the fact that they did not have these protections for people who are going in regular ambulances, the ambulances on the streets. And it's unclear exactly why they didn't include it, but they did acknowledge that it's a problem, and so they set up an advisory committee to make recommendations.
Patricia Kelmar is on that committee, which is made up of consumer advocates, EMS officials, and representatives from the ground ambulance industry.
What's been happening with ground ambulances is that every state and every community treats those entities in different ways. And so it's super complicated to come up with a national solution for ground ambulance surprise billing, but we definitely need to have one.
Our national investigative team reached out to 2 associations to explain ambulance costs from a business perspective. None of them responded or agreed to an interview. We also reached out multiple times to the ambulance service that transported Hammond's daughter and her insurance company. We're still waiting on a response, and she's still working on paying.
I'm sure it's not just a problem here, it's all over, and people really need to know what they should be expecting as far as bills.
While the ride was out of network, Hammond's insurance did apply the amount she paid towards her in-network deductible. It said the reason is because no ambulance service is actually in-network. In Washington, D.C., I'm Carice Jackman.
According to PIRG's research, 13 states have enacted laws to protect patients against out-of-network bills from ambulance companies. But even in those states, only patients who are insured by a state-regulated health plan are protected.
Even if you do not take an ambulance ride to the emergency room, some patients still have been hit with large medical bills. Investigative reporter Carice Jackman also talked with Kaiser Health News about how supplies and medications can be upcharged in the ER. You can find advice to avoid high cost on InvestigateTV.com. Just search costly care. Coming up, a barbershop owner in his 90s shows us how he's keeping his passion alive.
I have no set time. As far as standing here and cutting hair, that doesn't bother me.
But first, buyer beware. Tempting ads on social media could be scams. Next, we have tips to spot red flags so you don't get ripped off.
The Federal Trade Commission says social media can be a gold mine for fraudsters.
Scams on those platforms have skyrocketed in recent years, and in 2022, consumers lost more money through social media than any other method of contact.
While steps have been taken on the federal level to help protect your information, reporter Josie Sturman explains how to be your own investigator to decipher which ads are real and which are fake.
Looking for a new, bright, trendy dress? Trying to spice up your cooking game with a meal kit service? Want your dog's face on a t-shirt? Facebook and Instagram probably have already guessed that, and now you're getting ads. But if you put in your credit card number, are you really getting what you paid for, or is it a scam? In this Be Your Own Investigator, we're going to show you the tricks our own investigative team uses when we see an ad for something that seems a little too perfect. Here's why you need to be careful. According to the FTC, in 2022, consumers reported losing more than $1.2 billion to fraud that started on social media sites. Some issues, you could end up with a dress that looks nothing like the picture, or worse, nothing at all, or your personal information ripped off. So here are some ideas to help you judge ads for yourself. First, check out the photos carefully. Are there signs the picture might be photoshopped? That's a definite red flag. Check to see if the page is verified by the social media platform. On Facebook, there's a little blue check mark. Click on the page name on the ad and poke around a little bit. You might check for contact information and do some scrolling through the posts or the photos. You can also check the page transparency section on Facebook to see when a page was created and where the admins live. Look for comments from both upset and happy customers, especially if they have pictures of the product. And because you have to question everything these days, it's also good to click on the reviewer's profile to make sure they aren't fake too. Go online and search the name of the storefront. Sometimes you'll find a website, a news story, or a user review that'll let you know what you're seeing is legit, or maybe not. But be aware that sometimes companies will put up their own fake reviews too. So much to weed through here. Finally, you might want to check the company's website to see if there's a physical address or where the product is shipping from. If you're in a hurry, overseas shipping might take too long. Also, if there's an issue, sometimes it can be harder to resolve with a company outside the United States. By the way, the FTC isn't too happy about this problem. The agency ordered platforms including Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to provide information on how they restrict ads that are deceptive or expose consumers to fake products or scams. With this Be Your Own Investigator, I'm Josie Sturman.
Next, a barber proves age is just a number.
I get bored sitting in my home, and I enjoy the 2 or 3 days I'm over here.
See the legacy he's built while inspiring the next generation.
Since I got out of barber school, I wanted to work with an established barber, an older barber, kind of pick up some hints, know what to do.
It's not uncommon for people to switch jobs. According to the online recruitment company Zippia, people typically have 12 jobs in their lifetime.
For a man in Wisconsin, he's moved around a few times, but he's also stayed true to his passion. He estimates he's given more than 100,000 haircuts since becoming a barber in his teens.
Yeah, at the age of 91, he opened a new shop without telling his family. Reporter Jeff Alexander paid him a visit.
I think we'll take some off of this stuff, huh?
Take quite a bit.
Yeah.
Give Bob Roloff a customer in his barber chair and some clippers in his hand, and there's no place he'd rather be.
I tried to retire once and when I was in Arizona, and it was about a month or so, and I went and got a haircut and said to my wife, she said, "You got a haircut?" And I said, "Yeah, I got a haircut." But I said, "I'm going to work on Monday too." She said, "Are you out of your mind? We're out here to be retired." I said, I can't.
Growing up in Black Creek, Bob received his haircuts as a boy from his dad, who owned a barber shop for 55 years. By the time Bob was 16, he was following in his father's footsteps.
And I served my apprenticeship through him. Started in 1948. I was in high school.
3 years later, Bob had his license and worked for his dad for more than 15 years. At the age of 35, he bought a barber shop in Appleton.
There for about 11 years. Sold that to a young lady from Michigan, and we went out to Arizona.
18 years in Arizona eventually proved to be enough, and Bob and his wife moved back to the Fox Cities. For the next 10 years, Bob kept at it, reaching milestone birthdays and celebrating them by cutting hair. He also kept a secret thought in the back of his mind.
I, to myself, said if I ever get the chance, because I've always had my own shop, the right combination comes along, I will start a shop yet. I didn't tell my family or nothing because I knew they wouldn't agree.
This past spring, Bob met Mark Carwyke, a barber in Escanaba looking to return to the Fox Valley. Within an hour after meeting, they made a deal, shook hands, and a few months later, opened Bob's old-fashioned barber shop on Main Street.
He came back down with the barber chairs and some equipment and we started shop.
Well, always, since I got out of barber school, I wanted to work with an established barber, an older barber, kind of pick up some hints, know what to do. And we've been doing that. Even back and forth, he's asked me, well, how do you do this? And I'm like, well.
After all these years, Bob says he enjoys cutting hair more than ever. But his greatest joy remains...
Looks like the business has been good too, huh?
Yeah. The interaction with his customers.
Visiting and meeting new customers, and I get bored sitting in my home, and I enjoy the 2 or 3 days I'm over here. It's fun. Sometimes I sit around here and I let Mark work, and I just visit when they come in, you know.
And now that he's just started a business, just how long does Bob plan to stick around?
I like what you just said. I'm just starting. Yeah. I have no set time. As far as standing here and cutting hair, that doesn't bother me. I don't have any arthritis, and so why not work? I just feel good working.
This might be my favorite part. Bob also says he has a good senior deal at just $12 for a haircut, and it's $14 for adults. He says he promises to keep those prices as long as he's working, and it looks like he's going to be working for a while.
Yeah, he's part of that new generation of people called unretired.
People who just want to keep going, keep their brain going, and he's doing great. All right, that's for us here on Investigate TV Plus. I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm Tisha Powell. Thanks for watching. On the next Investigate TV Plus, how a tiny device puts machine guns in more hands.
It's mind-boggling.
We investigate what's being done to track down the illegal modification known as a Glock switch.